Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. Welcome back to my playthrough of Max Payne 3. On this part, we're continuing from where we left off, and if you enjoyed this series, do drop a like. We're doing the Panama mission on this one.
Panama had been my second job with Passos.
Hey, Max! Max! Come on!
The first had been easy. Money for banging waitresses at some fancy wedding in the Caribbean. This seemed like another easy gig. It was the middle of the day, and like any self-respecting idiot, I was half cut.
No, son, nothing like doing some good blows, some good friends on a boat. Daphne! Come here, I love this one!
Marcello, you're going to be the death of me!
There's a lot of symbolism in this mission also. Notice what Daphne says. She says, "Oh, Marcello, you're going to be the death of me."
Alfredo Borchardt!
It sure beats New Jersey, huh, Max?
Some ways.
Hey, come on, it's awesome!
Yeah. Everybody's drunk and tanned and listening to house music. Most of them have plastic surgery and they're all doing blow. I guess it is kind of like Jersey, huh?
That's very funny, Max. Hey, soldier!
Oh. I gotta quit drinking so much. Could give myself serious liver damage.
Yeah, big deal. You can always get a new one. Relax.
You can always get a new
hope you're not
liver.
drinking on
That's
the job,
symbolism
gentlemen.
also.
Kidding, I hope you are! Just stay off the yayo, I don't have enough to share. I'm kidding again! Oh, Mikey, even though we just met, I feel like we are good friends, you know? I feel like safe with you guys. Know that, like real safe.
That's great.
Yeah, and I love New York. The East Hamptons, do you know it?
Not really. I spent my honeymoon in Montauk.
Oh, where's that?
It's just down the road.
Whatever. Last time I was there, I got so wasted, I nearly shit myself. I didn't know you were married.
Yeah, well, my wife passed away.
Good. No, not good. Bad. Real bad. But good because now I can get you laid a lot. It is great to be single, hey? I love a woman. She's with another and she doesn't want to know it. Fuck her. I mean, could you believe that shit?
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm going to go to speak to Felipe. Felipe! You crazy crackhead! Lay off the yayo, eh? Passos. Walk with me.
Yeah.
What's the deal with this guy, eh? He's kind of stuck up.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, sure, tá bom, but have him smile a bit more, you know? Cause life is good! Where's the truck?
It's coming. Hey, soon.
Passos.
Yeah.
I gotta go lay down.
Okay.
This yacht is where the GTA 5 yacht comes from. The interior of it, the look of it is identical to GTA 5. This part is actually terrifying. Now, you just wake up, pass out for a couple hours, you don't know what just happened. And I understood that means shit in Spanish. This is just terrifying. Like I said, imagine waking up hours later not knowing what just happened. You're still half asleep, and then this happens.
¡No hay nadie aquí! ¡Esta también está vacía!
The G18, this is one of my favorite guns in Max Payne 3. Panama also has a really good soundtrack on this in this mission.
Daphne's ship was always stocked. The dead guys looked like soldiers in one of those Central American guerrilla armies. Pirates with a manifesto. Psychos with a dream. That sort of bullshit.
And I'm gonna show you guys something pretty terrifying right here. You see that right there? Look at the armband that he's wearing. You see that black armband with the white text on it? See if we can find another guy with it. Right here, see that too? That armband? That one there too? That one. Another armband. Why is this important? Take a look at that armband now. I'm gonna show you something pretty scary on the screen right now. You see that? This is not just a fictional group that was created for Max Payne 3, this is a real-life terrorist organization. In the game, they are called the AUP, which is, I think it stands for United Souls of the People. But in real life, this is a real-life terrorist organization. These guys aren't just pirates, they're terrorists. It's a real-life terrorist organization, and it's called AUC. So in the game, it's called AUP. In real life, it's called AUC. And in real life, it actually stands for United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia. These guys are not Panamanian. They're described as Panamanian in the game, but they're actually Colombian. Now, who are the AUC, and who are they exactly? These are really, really, really bad guys. Really, really evil guys. Some of the worst human beings that you can possibly encounter. And the thing about this is Colombia has actually a lot of terrorist groups, a lot of different rebel groups, a lot of them. Now, when people think of terrorists, they typically think of like Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, ISIS, but Colombia has actually had a terrorism problem that has been going back decades of a lot of these different rebel groups. So basically the backstory of the AUC is the AUC was actually formed from the ACCU, which was the peasant self-defenders of Cordoba and Uraba. I did a bunch of research on this group recently. I knew that they were a terrorist group beforehand, but I started reading a bit more about them. But anyways, the Peasant Self-Defense Forces of Cordoba and Uraba. This group was originally formed decades ago. It was formed during the Cold War, and it was formed in retaliation to FARC guerrillas. Now, FARC, that is another terrorist group that's actually in Colombia, and FARC is the most well-known terrorist group in Colombia. FARC actually stands for the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, which is basically a communist Marxist rebel group. They wanted to overthrow the Colombian government and establish a communist dictatorship, and the FARC was funded historically by Cuba. Cuba had funded and trained a lot of them, and the Soviet Union did as well until the Soviet Union collapsed. The Soviet Union collapsed. They weren't training them and funding them anymore. A lot of FARC commanders actually went to train both in Cuba and the Soviet Union. Today, FARC, the far-left rebel group, has mostly been disbanded. There is still remnants of it. There's still a few hundred of their rebel members that refuse to lay down their arms. But the Colombian government, I know they had some kind of peace agreement with them years ago, and I think that the FARC became a political party, and they agreed to disarm. Now, as for And Venezuela has also historically aided FARC. So Venezuela has actually hid FARC rebels inside of their country, and FARC has actually carried out atrocities inside Colombia and then went back into Venezuela to hide there. Now, as for the AUC is actually the complete opposite of the spectrum. Where FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, are a far left terrorist organization, AUC, or AUP, which is in Max Payne 3, they are actually a far right terrorist organization. So they're the complete opposite of the political spectrum. Now, what I was saying about peasant self-defenders of Cordoba and Uraba, it was formed as a reaction to FARC. So FARC was, trying to overthrow the Colombian government. They were threatening farm owners. FARC had committed numerous atrocities against people, and what happened was different rebel groups started forming, and one of them was the ACCU, and this rebel group was initially funded by the Colombian government, and the Colombian government had trained this group in order to protect farmers from FARC. But what happened was the ACCU turned into a dangerous rebel group that was just as bad as FARC. They were just as evil and just as bad as FARC. And sometimes they even did worse things than FARC. But they started working with drug cartels and drug traffickers. So soon drug traffickers and drug cartels started paying them in order to protect their coca fields and also their laboratories. And these guys started committing atrocities against civilian populations and robbing them and extorting them. And then later on, in the 90s, a faction broke away from the ACCU and formed the AUC, which is what the AUP is based on. Now, the United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia, the AUC, these guys are, what I was saying earlier, very, very, very bad guys, very, very evil guys, some of the worst human beings ever. So these guys had worked with drug traffickers, drug cartels. They had gone into villages and robbed the villages, raped women, burned villages, mass murdered people. Their first action where they were really, started becoming known for was the Pen massacre. If I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I'm sorry. But the thing about the AUC is the AUC are very heavily armed. They're just as heavily armed as FARC was. They fought against FARC, but despite them being very heavily armed with a lot of guns, a lot of their massacres actually were not committed with guns. A lot of their massacres were actually committed with blunt or sharp objects. Now, as for the Pen massacre, they used mostly chainsaws in that massacre, chainsaws and machetes. And they went into a village that they had accused of helping the FARC rebels. And so what the really messed up thing here is that the Colombian government had actually flown them in. So the Colombian military was collaborating with them, had flown them in, and they had actually let them through numerous, Colombian military checkpoints. And that area had a lot of FARC activity, but I found no evidence the villagers were actually in league with the FARC rebels. But when AUC entered the village, they accused the villagers of being in league with the FARC rebels, and they didn't care who the villagers were. All the civilians, kids, women, children, they just mass murdered them. Machetes, chainsaws, they cut off people's heads, they threw them in the river, they hung people from trees. It was horrible. People saw bodies floating down the river. It was just disgusting, just absolute brutality like that. And what ended up happening was one of the Colombian generals, because the people were actually asking the Colombian military for help. Their help, this evil rebel group is coming into our village and just, murdering us. And the Colombian military did not respond because the Colombian military was collaborating with them at the time. And the general in charge of it, I forget the general's name, I'll have it up on the screen here, but the general was in league with them. He knew about the massacre they were doing, and even though the people were calling for help from the military, the Colombian military did not respond, and the massacre happened. That general was actually sentenced to life in prison, and where he's currently spending it. And one of the worst massacre that the AUC was actually responsible for is they were responsible for the El Salado massacre. They killed over 100 people. Over 100 people in that massacre, and they had used chainsaws, machetes, they hung people, they killed people with rocks, extremely brutal, and they even killed kids, they raped women. Absolutely horrible. And then there was another massacre that I actually read about, and this was on the Spanish wiki of Wikipedia, and I had to translate it into English to get a little bit more information. But another massacre that I found out about, the Chengu massacre, and this one happened in 2001. 27 people were murdered again by the AUC, and the AUC, what they did in this one is that the governor of the region, Salvador Aranda, was actually accused of being in league with them. So the AUC has had links to a lot of politicians. A lot of people in the Colombian government have had links to this group, and they've used the AUC. The reason that the AUC has committed these murders is the politicians have basically paid the AUC to go and terrorize people, like political opponents, villages that were not voting for those politicians, anyone that they suspected of being in league with FARC. So they murdered a lot of innocent people that they accused of being in league with FARC. And the about that massacre, what happened was the prosecutor on the case was removed from it. So the prosecutor that was investigating the AUC for the case, the killings, was removed from it. But then the prosecutor was actually murdered by the AUC. So how did the AUC find the prosecutor exactly? And then what ended up happening is the prosecutor's replacement was actually murdered also by the AUC. So you had two murdered prosecutors that were going after them. How did the AUC find the prosecutors? How did they know exactly what prosecutors were? It was corruption. It was politicians that were in league with the AUC. They're basically giving them information on it. And then another massacre that I actually read about, the Naya massacre, which actually happened in the Naya River in Colombia. And this massacre, around 100 people were killed, but only 27 bodies were recovered. And the AUC had actually murdered people and were dumping all the bodies in the river. So a lot of the bodies would float down the river, but a lot of the bodies were never found. They sunk in the river, and there's probably a lot of skeletons still in that river today from the horrible things that the AUC has done. And also, what ended up happening was one of the AUC leaders was actually, when he was arrested, the Colombian government, what they did was they actually searched his computer, and they actually found a lot of ties to politicians, where they actually signed pledges to work with the AUC and help establish the AUC's own government. So the AUC wanted to overthrow the Colombian government, where the FARC wanted to establish their own, far-left communist, dictatorship. The AUC wanted to establish their far-right, dictatorship in Colombia. And about 139 members of Congress were under investigation. 5 governors and 32 lawmakers, including the cousin of the Colombian president at that time, were convicted. A lot of politicians were involved with that group. So the AUC are some really, really bad people, and the AUC are mostly known for their brutality and their lack of mercy. So if you're on a ship and your ship gets boarded by the AUC, oh man, that is one of the worst things that can happen. They're not going to show you any kind of mercy. It's a complete terrifying organization. So I didn't know that the group was a when I played Max Payne 3 when I was around 18 years old when it came out in 2012, I didn't know that it was a real life group, but it very much is very much a real life group. It's AUP is based directly off AUC. The armbands, their uniforms, it's almost exactly the same. They're from Colombia, and you'll find a document later in the UFE headquarters which talks a little bit more about them and their ideologies. But the AUC, they call themselves freedom fighters. But no freedom fighter is going to do horrible things like this. No freedom fighter is going to butcher and mass murder innocent people. And what I was saying about the terrorism problem in Colombia is Colombia has all these different terrorist groups. They have the FARC, the far left terrorists, communist terrorists. They had the AUC, which was the far right terrorists. They had the ELN, which is another far left terrorist organization, and they had the cartels also. So Colombia has had a lot of these different very dangerous rebel groups. These guys are very much terrorists. And as for the AUC, what ended up happening to them? Now the AUC, they were not funded by the United States. They were not. Now, I know that might be surprising to some people because the United States and the CIA has a history of funding really dangerous rebel groups in Latin America, and they funded, like, for example, the Contras in Nicaragua, which was basically a drug trafficking group very similar to the AUC. But the U.S. government actually had nothing to do with the AUC. The AUC was formed entirely in Colombia, and they were formed from the money of drug traffickers and politicians in Colombia, and also the Colombian military that had funded them. And the United States actually declared the AUC a terrorist organization, and a lot of their leaders had actually been extradited to the United States. So a lot of their leaders are in prison right now. Some of them are in the United States. Some of them have actually been extradited back to Colombia, but a lot of their leaders have actually been extradited to the United States. And the group fell apart in 2007, 2008, so the group doesn't really exist anymore. And there was a splinter group that formed from the remnants of the AUC called the Black Eagles, but they stopped being active like around 2012, 2011, right when Max Payne 3 came out. But that's basically the backstory. But I hope you guys don't find this boring, me describing all this stuff. But it's a very, very, very evil group. So, you know, Colombia has unfortunately had a very bad history with these far left terrorists and these far right terrorists. But that's basically the backstory with the AUC, which is what the AUP are based on. But anyways, let's continue on here and let's do this here. And
I had a way of making any space my own.
And there's a bunch of clues in this mission.
This was where Marcelo was supposed to be sleeping. He'd barely come down to this deck.
Yeah, this is Marcelo's room. And you can find this here. Max Payne, Walton's Bar, Hoboken. And I'm gonna play the dialogue for you guys from my playthrough 5 years ago, because once you beat the game, the dialogue, Max never says the dialogue again, so I'll play it for you guys so you guys can hear it.
Passos had the name of the bar where I was drinking my life away. I should have put things together then, instead of waiting for De Silva to walk me through it real slow.
And there's another clue in here, I think, yeah.
The room belonged to Passos, my partner in crime. Or maybe someone else's.
Next clue is Passos' bed. I'll play that for you guys, too.
The bed was made. I could only guess that Passos was upstairs in the thick of it, whatever it was. Booze, coke, pills. You could get whatever party favor you wanted on this vessel. The radio. Maybe I could send out an SOS.
I love the revolver.
Disparos en la cubierta inferior. Vete a ver qué pasa. Asegúrate de que los burros no derrochen municiones con los tripulantes. Todos los demás siguen buscando.
It certainly wasn't the first time I'd woken up with a hangover, long after a party had turned sour. The need to get out of the boat's hull and onto the upper deck as soon as possible was countered by the probability of running into another hijacker. I had to move carefully.
¡Está ahí!
Fire was sucking oxygen from the room. I didn't care if I got shot the second I got out of there. I needed one more gulp of fresh air before I died. It was like the need for a wake-up whiskey after a 2-day bender. How to shut off the fuel feeds. Move, Max. I shut down one engine, but it didn't make much difference. There. I could breathe again. Now the boat could get back to smelling like suntan oil, stale margaritas, and greed.
¡Camaradas, cúbreme! ¡Sí, sí! ¡Está cubierto!
I think I killed him.
So this was the famous Panama Canal. We could have gone to the moon while I was passed out and I wouldn't have noticed.
Another clue right here. I'll play it for you guys too, the dialogue.
While I'd been dead to the world, some of my shipmates were just plain dead. Where had they taken them?
¡Fuego, maricas! ¡Disparen ya!
It was a different scene than the one I'd stumbled away from. Where was everyone? I still didn't know what the hell happened.
Yeah, so this is the Panama Canal, and basically, the backstory behind how the Panama Canal was built was that, Panama had a revolution that was going on over 100 years ago. This is at the time of Teddy Roosevelt's presidency, so this is, you know, more than 120 years ago. But Panama was having a revolution, and they were part of Colombia at that time. They wanted to break away from Colombia, and the main reason was because all of the leadership in Colombia was centered in mainland South America, not in Central America, in Panama. So the Panamanians
I
felt
didn't
like
to think what was behind the door. The boat was
Panamanians felt like the Colombians were not taking their needs into account, and that they weren't not fairly represented. And what ended up happening is the Panamanian rebels went to the U.S. for help, and the U.S. basically told them, we'll help you, but in exchange we want you to let us build a canal for your country. And the Panamanians said, okay. And what ended up happening is the U.S. sent a bunch of their warships towards that area, and the second the Colombians saw the American warships, they backed off. They didn't even engage with the U.S., and Panama became an independent country, and then the U.S. built the Panama Canal. That's basically the backstory on it.
The guys up ahead weren't dealing with passengers like the rest of them. Maybe I should have realized then that this was no ordinary kidnap job. Something on the boat had attracted the sharks.
This is another clue right here. I'll play it for you guys too, the dialogue.
After I got out of New Jersey, things had flared up again between the Punchinellos and the DeMarcos. Didn't look like things would die down anytime soon. I was gonna have to stay away from the only place I'd ever known.
So basically what happened was the Punchinellos went to war with the DeMarcos right after Max actually left. And one of the reasons was that the Punchinellos saw the DeMarcos as weak because they lost so many people in their war against Max. There's another clue right here. I'll play the dialogue for you guys.
Whatever they were looking for appeared to be gone.
Yeah, you can see this is completely inspired the Yacht in GTA. There's gonna be another clue right here. Yeah, right here.
Daphne Bernstein, a recent divorcee, making the most of her considerable settlement, and Marcella was making the most of her. I don't want to think about it. They didn't help with my sea legs, but they sure as shit felt good.
¡Puta, aquí no hay nada! ¡Miguel, vení para acá! ¡Malparido!
There was something firing these guys other than good old-fashioned socialist zeal. What were they looking for?
So yeah, so Max thinks that they're FARC rebels. That's why he says that they're socialist zeal, but they're really a far-right group. This is another clue.
It didn't make sense. Why would they leave the jewels and rip open the walls? It didn't occur to me just what the other cargo on board could be.
So the pirates didn't take the jewelry. They were looking for something else. Now this part of the mission, this is gonna be the hardest part of the mission here. See.
I was on a ghost ship in a ghost canal. The whole thing creeped me the hell out.
Yeah, this is exactly the same as GTA right now here. This interior.
The pirates wouldn't get everything.
Yeah, this part, you see what part is very difficult.
And the band played on. I had to save some valuables.
¡Anda, anda! ¡Está abierto! ¡Adelante, mis camaradas! ¿Quién me cubre? ¡Alto para ¡Alto! ¡Alto! ¡Manténganse, camaradas! ¡Alto! ¡Alto! ¡Manténganse, camaradas!
¡Ya llegó su muerte!
¡Ey! Ahora sería un buen momento para abrir fuego.
¡Pilas, parce! ¡Que estamos en la olla!
Damn, there's so many of them.
¿Cómo lo pides? ¡Hijo de puta!
¡Alto! ¡Alto! ¡Manténganse, camaradas!
Oh, and also, for you guys wondering, how many people did the AUC have in total? The terrorist organization had a total of 20,000 guys. This was not a small group by any means.
¡Ya puedes adelantar!
¡Alto ahí! ¡Te voy a abrir la cabeza!
¡Socorro! ¡No puedo escapar!
Doesn't look like there's any painkillers here. Okay. I know some
Maybe there
people
was
are
something
watching
on the
this and
bridge. I checked every other inch of the boat.
they're probably thinking like, how are you doing this? Because Panama's one of the hardest missions in the game, but this is not easy by any means. The hardest part of this mission is going up the ship.
I spotted Passos and Marcelo. If I'd known back then that they'd been up to no good while I was fighting my way through a band of violent paramilitaries and a worse hangover, I might not have wanted to get over to them so bad.
Hey, Passos!
At the time, I hadn't thought too much about this. I hadn't thought too much about anything. Now I remember it, it didn't seem quite so kosher.
What about, what's her name? Daphne.
Do whatever you think is best.
I think it's best we try to go find her.
Yeah, okay, let's go. Yeah.
See, I didn't think Passos was a bad guy. He didn't need to try to save this woman or the crew.
Through here. Didn't realize you knew your way around here.
They were using that building to get across the canal.
Come on, we're gonna get her, let's get her! From the top floor!
There was some equipment in the truck next to me. It'd be a shame to see it go to waste.
We can get across up top.
Come on, I don't know how much time we have! I'm moving! Let's go, you drunk idiot!
There's gotta be a reason why they're going across the canal.
Don't be stupid, get down! We're good!
¡Necesito cobertura! ¡Sí, sí!
I don't know what I expected to find. On a boat full of drunks and bullshit artists, I'd been the cabaret act. Shooting whatever came in front of me was easier than coming to terms with that reality.
This is my favorite bullet time moment in Max Payne 3, this part right here.
¡Coño de su madre!
Fancy seeing you here.
Adelante, no le dejes escapar. Vuelta vida, sufrirás una muerte bárbara. Avanzamos.
Just trying to see, I think I might have missed one clue here, because I remember there's one clue in the museum. A lot of times the enemies will come to you if you wait long enough. Oh, this is it. Yeah, wait.
Fucking around would have gotten me killed.
Okay, here we go.
I blocked out all my questions. All I thought about was getting to Daphne Bernstein before it was too late. Americans had a long and checkered history of involvement in Panama. This was my sorry chapter, for what it's worth.
So remember what I said about the AUC's brutality? This is pretty much what they would have done.
Jesus Christ.
This is why I don't feel bad that Marcelo got burned to death. I know that I might seem like a psychopath for saying that, but Marcelo literally got all these people killed. All of these people died because of him.
Fuck, man. This is brutal. I didn't think things would be like this.
I should have jumped in that canal.
Goddamn canal
No,
myself
fine.
and swum my way back to New York.
Let me ask you again, Max. What do you think you were really doing in Panama?
I was drinking.
People died. Innocent people. Who do you think robbed you?
I don't know. I was told it was people who disliked Daphne Bernstein, something about an unpleasant divorce.
Her ex-husband worked on Wall Street. Do you think he has easy access to Panamanian death squads?
Guess I didn't really think about it.
You were smuggling something, weren't you?
No. I mean, I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't think too much about it, but yes, Marcelo did drive off with something. I don't know what. I didn't see him until we got to Brazil a week or so later.
I think it was money. I think Marcelo and Victor have a friendly banker there in Panama. Your little cruise was to deliver the cash to him because there it's easier to launder.
But I thought the Broncos were rich.
Rodrigo's rich. The other two, they live well, but they don't have real money. Victor's campaigns were always financed by his brother. That is the way among certain rich families there. The eldest brother is the king. You know, he gets everything. The other two, not so much.
And now Rodrigo's dead.
Exactly. And Marcelo, too. It's an awful tragedy for Victor, huh? A man running on a law and order ticket, you know, whose brothers have both been killed in such terrible circumstances. A true patriot.
What about Marcelo?
Marcelo was an idiot. Were this true, I certainly don't believe he could possibly have known about it. But I do believe some other scheme, you know, some other bullshit. Whatever that cash was, Victor could have talked him into something. I don't know yet.
And Passos?
Well, Passos is a bum ex-cop. He failed in America, failed in Sao Paulo. He was surrounded by more money and more poverty than his tiny little head can handle. You think guys like that can't be bought?
No, but
But nothing. He's probably not a bad guy. He's just a man caught in the crossfire of a very rich family.
What about me?
You. You're the fall guy. The American. Running around, acting like the action hero. Killing lots of people. You're a stroke of genius.
That ain't how it is.
You were an angry ex-cop. You were sitting in a bar with a history of violence and a history of a bad temper. You were perfect.
Me and Passos went to the academy together.
Did you?
I don't fucking know.
Okay, let's take a drive, Max.
So let me actually say this. This is the part of the story that people get very confused in. What was the purpose of Max Payne being recruited for the Broncos? Max was meant to be the fall guy for that yacht incident that basically happened. So Marcelo and Passos both knew the pirates were coming. That they knew that the pirates were going to attack the yacht. That's why Marcelo and Passos were the only survivors besides Max. They knew the pirates were coming, so they got off the yacht really quickly. When the yacht was probably docking in the Panama Canal and everybody was still partying, Marcelo probably made some excuse with Passos. Oh, let me go get something from town really quick while the yacht's going through the canal. Something like, some kind of excuse like that's to get off the yacht temporarily. That's probably what had happened. And what they were doing is they were smuggling in laundered cash to take it to Panama. Panama does have a friendly banking system in real life. A lot of people actually launder money through Panama. But if Passos and Marcelo had gotten off the yacht at that time and just to smuggle in, cash, the Panamanian military, the police would have stopped them because there's a lot of activity typically around the canal. But if there was like a big pirate attack, the yacht had gotten attacked, then the police and the military would have been on the lookout for the pirates. They wouldn't have been looking out for Marcelo and Passos driving away. They would have been focused completely on stopping the pirates. That was the purpose of the pirates' attack, so that they could smuggle out the money quickly. Now, how did the pirates know about the yacht? The Ufe tipped them off. So Ufe tipped them off. And Victor knew about the pirates coming in, and Marcelo did, and Passos did. And when Passos says, F man, I didn't know it was going to be this bad, what Passos probably thought was going to happen, Passos probably thought that they were going to be taken as hostages, and that the government was probably going to have to pay some kind of ransom to get them back. He didn't expect the hostages to be mass murdered. He didn't think that. So Passos probably didn't know about the AUP. He didn't know about their brutality, how evil the terrorist organization is. And so that's probably it. Passos didn't know they were going to murder all the hostages. He thought that the hostages were just going to be basically taken in, and just basically taken for ransom money. The reason they left Max was because they were going to blame it all on Max. They were going to say, Max failed to do his job to, protect the yacht from the pirates. He was a terrible security. He was an American that didn't understand what was going on here. He had a history of violence. He was drinking on the job. That's pretty much what they were going to throw Max under the bus for that, basically. That was the whole purpose of that with the pirates. So they were going to basically have Max blame as the guy who who failed to stop the pirates. And the yacht was not Marcelo's. The yacht was actually Daphne's. Marcelo actually started dating Daphne and having an affair with her during her divorce. Her husband was a very rich Wall Street banker, and she divorced him and basically took the yacht. And so Marcelo basically had an affair with her and used her to and her yacht to basically go through Panama in order to smuggle the cash. That was basically the backstory behind that.
Want to do some good? Want to get yourself killed in a good cause? Then I need you to check something out for me.
Like what?
That incident at the favela today. Now, some of my officers say a bus drove off some captives.
They did, I saw it.
But no captives were ever booked.
They probably handed them off to the paramilitary death squads, the,
Caixa Preto?
Right.
Who did?
I don't know, the cops. The other cops, the cops who shoot on sight.
The UFE.
Right.
Max, you see that building there?
The Imperial Palace Hotel?
Yeah, that's what it says. People go in there in large groups under armed guard. But it isn't a police station, and no one comes out of there.
Why don't you just go in and bust the joint, get a warrant?
I'm only a cop, Max.
So you keep saying. Time to find out what was going on here. I didn't fancy booking myself in the presidential suite, so went looking for the basement.
Yeah, so we will wrap this up here, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed this part. I hope you guys don't get bored by my commentary. I like to explain a lot of the things and what a lot of the things are inspired by in the story. But thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Pa'l centro, pa' dentro, perreando contigo, que bien yo me siento. Pa' arriba, pa' abajo, pa'l centro, pa' dentro, perreando contigo, que bien yo me siento. Negra, mueve tu cinturita, de un lado al otro lado, que se te ve bonita, cuando te pones cuatro. Mueve tu cinturita, arriba y abajo, pa' arriba, pa' abajo, pa'l centro, pa' dentro, perreando contigo, que bien yo me siento. Te veo en la disco meneando la pera, ese movimiento a mí me desespera.